So this takes us into our last segment, another short shot called A Toast, where each of us picks something that we like that you should go check out. Tolly, you want to start us out?
Sure. This is something I discovered recently on Brain Pickings. Do you guys read that website?
Occasionally.
It's just such a wonderful treat. Anyway, Terry Gross a while back did this touching interview with Maurice Sendak right before he passed away, and that in itself is worth a listen to. But this illustrator, Christoph Niemann, I can't remember whether he illustrates for the New Yorker or the New York Times, one of those, but illustrated the first 5 minutes of their conversation, this little YouTube video, and it's just the most charming thing you've ever seen. And Maurice Sendak is talking about the pleasures of growing old and also the pleasures of winding down your life too, and it's just a wonderful piece of internet minutia.
Joe?
Mine this week is, since I've been, as we discussed earlier, covering festivals for 2 months, I'm way behind on WTF podcasts with Mark Maron, and so I've started to catch up this weekend. And I just listened to the interview with Robert Wall, who is not a comedian that I ever particularly think about or like all that much, but this was a wonderful example of why Maron's podcast is so great, because it filled in some blanks that I didn't know existed with this guy. I didn't know that Wall started out as a writer for Rodney Dangerfield, and he had amazing stuff about working for Dangerfield. And it just reminded me that the thing that's so impressive about Maron's podcast is that it really has created this map of American comedy, and someone could just go through those podcasts and write a pretty detailed, interesting oral history of the past 30 years of American comedy just through those interviews. And this wasn't with a big celebrity. I mean, Wall's a fairly well-known guy, but it's not like he was sitting down with Mel Brooks or something. And he's not even somebody I find all that funny. And I still got a tremendous amount out of it. So it reminded me how good that podcast can be. Even if Maron just spends half the time talking about himself and his own neuroses, you're still able to get amazing stuff out of his guests.
It's amazing how some of the names, like Chris Albrecht, come up again and again as sort of the conduit of a lot.
Exactly. Yeah, you can.
This guy that used to be at the Comedy Store runs HBO and puts all these comedians in these shows on the air and changes the culture.
Yeah, and you can really just draw this map. Like here, Chris Albrecht is a point. Mitzi Shore at the Comedy Store is a point. Yeah. And you just sort of connect. He connects all these dots. Whereas, so if you listen to 10 or 20 or 30 of these things, you get this really interesting sketch of American comedy through lots of different viewpoints. And I think these things should be in the Library of Congress. I think they're amazing.
Excellent. Well, my pick is a comic called Sex Criminals by Matt Fraction, who I've kind of fallen in love with over the last year. He writes Hawkeye, which is brilliant. He writes Fantastic Four and FF. Until recently, he actually stopped doing that to work on these other projects. Sex Criminals is not Marvel. It is very dirty. It's for adults, but it's really fun and different, and I can't even go into what it's about without offending some people, but it's really great. The art is fantastic. Fraction's writing is dead on. I've only read the first issue. I'm going to probably go pick up the second issue today or tomorrow, but I'm really loving it so far. Can't wait to see where it goes. So there've only been 2 issues so far, so very easy to catch up on, but go to your comic store and say, 1 Sex Criminals, please.
Where do you in particular buy them?
Joe actually turned me on to Austin Books over on Lamar. I used to buy them in New Braunfels at Hastings, but of course Austin Books has a much better selection of stuff. If I can't find it at Hastings, I'd go there.
Yeah, it's Austin Books is a phenomenal store. One of the nice things about living in Austin, that it does have a strong, such a strong nerd population that we have a couple of outstanding comic book stores and gaming stores, and this is a great place to be a giant dork. Your needs are met.
We will be talking about tabletop gaming in the future, I promise you. I'm obsessed with some of that right now. So thank you, Joe, for joining us this week.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
This was a lot of fun.